Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles has tendered her resignation, citing health reasons. Rumors of her resignation have been floating since last week, along with speculations of infighting within the executive circle. Jose Calida also resigned as chairperson of the COA, or Commission on Audit, according to Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin. President Bongbong Marcos has yet to designate appointees for the vacated posts.
Alam niyo si Presidente, napakadaming inaasikaso. I think there will be time for that selection process. Let us give the President more time.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. The big story tonight.
Two more top officials of government have stepped down from their posts just days before President Bongbong Marcos marks his first 100 days in office.
Those who resigned are now former Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles and former Commission on Audit Chairperson Jose Calida. Maricel Halili with the big story.
Two more officials have stepped down from the Marcos administration on Tuesday. Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles announced that she has stepped down from her post due to health reasons. In a statement, Angeles said she tendered her resignation, which will be effective end of business hours. She, however, did not provide further details. Senior Deputy Executive Secretary Hubert Guevara said President Bongbong Marcos is already aware of the secretary's resignation. Guevara says the president has even left Angeles a thank you note. As of now, it is not clear yet who will take her place as the press secretary.
Wala pong bagong press secretary.
Alam niyo si Presidente, napakadaming inaasikaso. And I think there will be time for that selection process. Let us give the President more time.
Commission on Audit Chairperson Jose Calida also tendered his resignation as confirmed by Executive Secretary Bersamin. Calida's resignation came just after 10 officials, excluding the former COA chairperson, were reappointed by the agency. Those reappointed took their oath before President Bongbong Marcos, following their bypass by the Commission on Appointments. Also bypassed was former Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez, who was earlier reported to be the presidential chief of staff through Administrative Order No. 1. But Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin says that to his knowledge, there is no such thing as an AO1. What is clear to them is that Attorney Rodriguez is no longer part of the cabinet following his earlier resignation.
He is no longer a member of the cabinet. You must recall that he resigned for a specific reason, and that reason is well published to you. We cannot second guess that reason. Take it as it is stated by, as it was stated by the Secretary, and let us respect his privacy.
For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
See?
President Bongbong Marcos has renewed the ad interim appointments of 10 members of his cabinet. Here's what we know. Earlier today, Marcos Jr. led the oath-taking of the following cabinet members: Finance Secretary Ben Jokno, Socio-Economic Secretary Arsenio Balisacan, Public Works Secretary Manny Bonoan, Trade Secretary Fred Pascual, and Social Welfare Secretary Erwin Tulfo. President Marcos also reappointed Transport Chief Jimmy Bautista, DOST Secretary Renato Solidum, Energy Secretary Rafael Lotilla, Migrant Worker Secretary Toots Ople, and Human Settlement Secretary Jose Rizalino Acuzar.
To discuss the recent movements in Malacanang, we have with us again here in the studio One News Chief Correspondent Ed Lingao. Good evening, Bo.
Good evening. Different topic this time.
Oh, we had been talking, I mean, there were already rumors ever since Vic Rodriguez was replaced as Executive Secretary that maybe Trixie Cruz-Angeles as well. Now that this comes, is this necessarily a surprise?
Actually, no. We've been hearing about this for the last, 2 or 3 weeks already. Ever since Vic Rodriguez resigned as Executive Secretary, and Trixie Angeles announced that he was being appointed as Chief of Staff. I think sunod-sunod yun eh. Kasi that announcement apparently was not true. That was belied by the executive secretary himself. That order was never signed by the president. So
AO1.
AO1. So in other words, Trixie Angeles gave, I don't know, you'd want to call it fake news.
Okay, but sorry, just quickly. Does that mean we still do not know how AO1 was actually crafted?
We don't,
or if it was...
Yeah, we don't know which version of AO1... pero it's
but you're not
already
saying
moot,
that there's no verification na it was never...
It's already moot kasi as far as at least the ES announced kanina, it was never signed. So for all we know, it never even got up the ladder. I mean, binaril kagad din really. So we don't know if it was even considered by the president.
Okay, but the matter of it having been signed is actually not true.
Yes, it's not true, at least according to the executive secretary, and he is, of course, the little president.
Well, Trixie Cruz-Angeles and Jose Calida both stated that they have medical conditions.
Reasons.
Yeah. Do you? I mean, what is the truthfulness to that? And do you think it has any relation, the resignation, with ES Bersamin?
Well, the reason of medical condition, it's always been used as a euphemism for or a code word for political reasons. So that's possible in the case of Trixie Angeles. However, in the case of Jose Calida, he's always been very loyal to both Duterte and Marcos. In fact, in 2016, he convened the ALDA movement, the Alianza Duterte Bongbong movement. He was a convener, and he pushed that forward. So there's no, and in 2016 he was also fighting very, very forcefully for the burial of the late president sa libingan ng mga bayani. Sabi ni Duterte mismo. So klaro naman yung kanyang loyalties. But the thing is this: during the budget hearing of the Commission on Audit last month, the House of Representatives, they were looking for Calida, and he was not there. The reason that was given was that he was under medical leave, and he'd been under medical leave since September 1.
I was going to say.
Whether what the condition is, we are not yet clear. There's been some sickness bandied around, but we are not yet sure about that. But apparently, this predates even this event.
Okay, now in any case, what does this mean? Particularly Trixie Cruz-Angeles and finding a new press secretary. I don't know about you, but I think Vic Rodriguez, I think Trixie Cruz-Angeles, I think all the way back to the presidential campaign, and I associate them with basically being a cordon sanitaire for President Marcos, very strict and very disciplined, we have to say. That's the most positive people have put it. A very disciplined cordon sanitaire. Do you suspect a loosening of that environment in Malacanang?
Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. On one hand, you have Trixie Cruz-Angeles with their army of vloggers. She had earlier endorsed the vloggers as possible accreditees of the Malacanang Press Corps. And in the last few weeks, we've also seen fissures within the vlogging community. These are the people who are very, very vociferously for Bongbong Marcos. They would fight tooth and nail for Bongbong Marcos. Nahati sila. Merong pro Vic Rodriguez at merong anti-Vic Rodriguez. However, what's noticeable here is that you may be pro or anti-Vic, but they are all still very, very pro-BBM. So you can expect that moving forward. Now, whatever happens with this this case with Vic Rodriguez, ano pa rin yan? The narrative will still continue that nag-aaway lang sila sa baba. You have several factions, 2 factions, but in the end, they're still all for BBM. So that much is clear.
Compared to the other administrations, would you say that this has been the most tumultuous before the 100 days of President Marcos? And what would that say about the inner circle?
You also saw quite a lot of action ng panahon ni Tita Cory. Of course, that was a different circumstance. That's coming from an entirely different world.
Literally a revolutionary situation.
And you had also pressure from the rightist rebels for Cory to make some concessions. And that's what happened along the line. Kaya nagliglagan yung maraming mga supposedly kaliwa na cabinet members. So you also saw, some bloodshed nung panahon ni Cory. Pero since then, wala masyado eh.
Yeah.
Di ba?
At the very least, people try to make it to the first 100 days
Yeah.
on a high note. Diba? So even if you were to take away any comparison to any other administration, it's been a tumultuous week for this very young administration.
For 3 months.
Diba? I mean, Singapore really dominates the optics. You had Carding, devastating agriculture. People basically saying we want to see how the president acts on this. Singapore takes that over, and people are.
Don't forget the prices.
That's right. And then the announcement on top of that prices will probably rise at least 20%. That's just for rice. People dismayed with the president, questioning his judgment, pushing through with whatever it was, whether it was a personal trip or a working trip, whatever it was, people questioning him. But that on top of now, which are major movements within his cabinet, what does this do to the narrative of President Bongbong Marcos, even just for this week, when people are going to talk about his first 100 days?
Interesting question, but I'll refer back to what I mentioned a while ago with the vloggers, because that's going to be the predominant, I think that's going to be the predominant narrative. That mag-away-away man kayo sa baba, unity pa rin pagdating sa Pangulo.
So we fall back on unity again, and we'll see how much
because
magic.
That's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. But now, parang a lot of themes are coming up other than unity. We'll have to see how that plays out. Kung may tibay pa yung tema ng unity. Okay, maraming salamat, Ed Lingao.
Thank you.
After the break, the Justice Department is sounding alarm over the spread of sexually transmitted infections among POGO workers. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
We're talking wreckage that was far and wide here. Yeah, we got the billionaires on one side, but we got everyday people who lost their life savings. We saw currencies collapse. There were mass layoffs at companies, and some of these companies were once valued at billions of dollars, declared bankruptcy. So what happened? Well, there was the collapse of this so-called algorithmic stablecoin, and what that did is it set off this chain reaction that brought one of the best-known crypto hedge funds to its knees. We got to go back to May to understand what really happened here. The collapse of Terra USD. This is an algorithmic stablecoin, and it once topped the charts. Now, it's not exactly clear what set off the slump in demand for UST, but then we saw this death spiral, and it knocked UST off its $1 peg. Think about this as like the crypto equivalent of a bank run. At the same time, crypto had been falling in price since the end of last year. But then as Terra was melting down, the panic started to spread, and it dropped the price of Bitcoin by nearly 30% in just a week. The problem is that lenders were using Bitcoin for collateral, and that just led to carnage across the industry. Take Three Arrows Capital. It was this previously invincible hedge fund. It once managed as much as $10 billion, and it declared bankruptcy. This was just a mess, but it's a mess that we've got to make sense of and we've got to understand. A $60 billion collapse of an ecosystem that led to a massive decline in the price of Bitcoin, and then the outright collapse of companies. It was contagion. But it was contagion that raises really important questions. What's the collateral damage to an industry after an event like this? And perhaps most importantly, have people just lost faith in crypto?
The U.S. dollar has been on a tear this year, and it's set to get stronger. So much so that the rest of the world may need to intervene to limit the damage to their own currencies and economies. We polled a group of professional investors, and 70% of them see the Bloomberg U.S. dollar index rising over the next month. 30% see it going down. The Bloomberg U.S. dollar index tracks the dollar against a basket of other currencies and is up almost 14% in 2022. Almost half of the survey respondents expect.
You're watching The Big Story here on One News. The Justice Department is investigating prostitution rings linked to the POGO industry following a reported rise in cases of sexually transmitted diseases among the industry's workers. Marlene Alcaide with a report.
From kidnapping and illegal detention to alleged cases of prostitution, the POGO industry has since been marred with back-to-back issues. The Department of Justice is now alarmed over the spread of sexually transmitted diseases among POGO workers.
Within the POGO companies and within the employees of the POGO companies, there have been reports of the spread of sexually transmitted disease. Although we're trying to find out the full extent of this, it seems as though mga nasa 15 to 20 dun sa mga reports namin.
The DOJ said it has yet to determine how prevalent STD cases are among POGO workers. It has tasked the National Bureau of Investigation to focus on the issue.
Di na natin antayin ang panahon na umabot na to sa ating mga kababayan. And we hope that we're able to contain this as soon as possible.
372 foreign nationals will be deported this month. Majority are Chinese nationals working for illegal POGO companies. While over 48,000 foreign nationals will have their visas canceled after the government canceled the licenses of the POGO companies they are working for. They will be given 59 days to leave the Philippines or they will be deported.
Yung pag-cancel ng mga visas due to various reasons, kailangan nang umalis ng bansa yung Chinese nationals on their own. Hindi na namin sila arestuhin, and I think another advantage there ay mas mura na ngayon para sa gobyerno.
The DOJ says the immigration is still finalizing the documents for Chinese nationals awaiting deportation. For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
How alarming is this health situation in the POGO community? Let's get some answers from Dr. Jose Gerard Belimac. He is the manager of the Health Department's HIV, AIDS, and STI Prevention and Control Program. Welcome to the big story, Dr. Belimac.
Good evening, Sir Robbie and Ma'am Gretchen. Magandang gabi po sa lahat ng nanonood.
Doc, first of all, just to be sure that we're talking about something that we can, objectively report on here. What do we know about the situation of STDs among POGO workers?
Well, the Department of Health, together with our allied government agencies, is still confirming and verifying this matter. Nevertheless, the Department of Health would like to assure and convey the message that the DOH, with its very well-functioning surveillance system, is on top of this matter. And we will be getting back to the public once additional information is available po.
Mr. Belimac, is there any cause for alarm among the general public? How high are the cases? And can you give us probably how a detailed explanation on how STD spread and how why the alarm over the POGO industry?
Well, based on our data, ma'am, the STD and other the sexually transmitted diseases and the sexually transmitted infections are still prevalent in our country. Now, they are not yet eliminated, and the health system is still trying to control them via different strategies. Based on the data of our Epidemiology Bureau, the most common sexually transmitted infections that are reported are syphilis and gonorrhea. And looking at the trends as well, between January this year to June this year, the prevalence of these infections are in fact at 1.2% for syphilis and 7.9% for gonorrhea. So that's the data that we had. This is based on the specimens sent to the different reporting laboratories participating in the surveillance program of the Department of Health. One thing that is good for sexually transmitted diseases is we know the prevention of how to avoid sexually transmitted diseases. Isang magandang bagay po yan dahil alam natin po ang pamamaraan upang ito ay maiwasan naman. with the different prevention strategies.
Doc, balik ko lang doon specifically dito sa POGO industry in our story, and we stress, as you said, you still have to validate this concern, you're looking into it, you're monitoring, you're investigating, but as with all things with POGO, do we have that capacity? Are there challenges in actually monitoring? Even the Department of Justice is saying just accounting for all of the workers right now is difficult. A lot of these POGO workers have had their passports canceled, and some are hard to identify. Are there challenges even in just finding and accounting for them, even before you could get to the question of monitoring and finding out their health situations?
Yeah, thank you. Sexually transmitted disease kasi is difficult to establish in the very first place, no? Kasi most of individuals with sexually transmitted infections do not display symptoms. So it is very important that when an individual feels that the individual is exposed to a certain sexually transmitted infection, they are really encouraged to undergo screening and consultation. No? Again, it's difficult to establish the infection. Dapat kasi kailangang matest muna bago natin masabi that a person has the infection. So if the person do not present to the health center or to the clinics, they might go unnoticed, and transmission will happen from the close, intimate contact of that certain person.
Alright, maraming salamat po, Dr. Jose Gerard Belimac, Manager of the DOH HIV, AIDS, and STI Prevention and Control Program. Still to come, check out this vehicle made from a drum and other recyclable materials. The big story returns after the short break. Stay with us.
UK Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng is promising no more distractions after he and Prime Minister Liz Truss were forced into a U-turn on plans to cut taxes for top earners. The reversal was designed to fend off a mounting rebellion within the ruling Conservative Party. Bloomberg has learned Kwarteng will now announce his medium-term fiscal plans sooner than November in a bid to reassure financial markets.
I think it was a distraction, and I think it was the wrong thing to do. I think we've got to try and listen. I think people in government have to listen to voters, have to listen to people in the country, and it's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to put your hand up and say, actually, this isn't the right thing to do now.
A lawyer for Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has asked a U.S. judge to dismiss a case accusing him of ordering the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The lawyer argues Prince Mohammed's new role as Prime Minister gives him legal immunity. The complaint was filed by Khashoggi's fiancée in October of 2020 and also names 20 other Saudis. The U.S. has asked for more time to submit its response. Officials in Florida now say 58 people were killed by Hurricane Ian as the damage bill mounts 5 days after the storm struck. According to modeler Verisk, insured losses have risen to as much as $57 billion. President Biden is scheduled to visit Florida on Wednesday to survey the damage from what he described as one of the worst storms to ever hit the United States. Hong Kong has eased COVID-related restrictions on locally based airline crews when they're working overseas. According to a Cathay Pacific staff memo, pilots and flight attendants no longer need to isolate in hotels when overnighting between the outbound and return legs of foreign flights. However, they'll still be expected to avoid bars and other mass gatherings. Global news, 24 hours a day on air and on Bloomberg Quick Take, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Vonnie Quinn. This is Bloomberg.
I think the challenge with crypto is so many people in 2021 especially, we saw this in 2018 and before that in 2014, so many people view crypto and so many people online marketed crypto as a way to get rich quick. So people were marketing a lot of these things as an easy button, and as you and I and everyone knows, right, there is no easy button. And I think the challenge is that a lot of people
You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. Some businesses in Pasig are being forced to temporarily shut down amid the 6-year closure of Meralco Avenue. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez with the story.
Due to the construction of the Metro Manila subway, parts of Meralco Avenue here in Pasig City is now closed. But aside from causing heavy traffic, the subway's construction also means that the decade-old Metrowalk building needs to be demolished. This did not sit well with some employees of establishments in Metrowalk. 23-year-old Kim could not help but feel bad about the pending demolition of the building. Kim explained he has just started working at a Korean restaurant in Metrowalk, and now he has to look for another job.
No choice naman kung magstay kami dito, ano naman gagawin namin, di ba?
Alfred, who has been working at Metrowalk for about 7 years, said he's in favor of the construction of the subway. But he admits the demolition of the building is a big loss for them all.
Malaking epekto yan sa amin dahil nga mawawalan na kami ng trabaho. Ito lang yung inaasahan naming trabaho para makalutas sa pang-araw-araw. Wala na kaming magagawa.
The Meralco Avenue underground station of the Metro Manila subway is estimated to be about 1 hectare long. That's why the northbound and southbound lanes of Meralco Avenue from Capitol Commons to Shaw Boulevard will remain closed for 6 years to give way to its construction. Authorities say that once the project is complete, all commercial establishments affected by the construction will be allowed to return. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
A Balut vendor from Valenzuela decided to create his own car made from recyclable materials in what is now known as a drum car. Mobile journalist Yeda Pascual gives us a front seat to that story.
Amid the COVID-19 lockdowns, many individuals were forced to find ways to keep themselves busy. While some decided to start a new hobby, one Balut vendor invented what he calls the drum car. This is a vehicle made from various scrap materials.
Habang nakaupo lang po ako sa harapan ng pinto namin, bigla na lang sumagi na gawin ko pa kayong may pakinabang ng makina ng motor ko. Kung paano ko pa siyang gagamitin. Hanggang sa naisip ko nga, gumawa kaya ako ng sasakyan na kakaiba.
This idea of Rolando came into fruition despite him having no background on mechanics.
Sinisilip ko pa po yung mga ilalim ng sasakyan, kung ano yung mga kakailanganin ko kung paano nabuo yung mga sasakyan. Pinipicturean ko yung mga ilalim ng sasakyan, wala sa differential hanggang sa mga under chassis po.
From the wheels to the steering wheel, as well as the engine, the parts Roland used were all from old-fashioned materials. But what catches everyone's attention with this car is its very body, which is from an old drum. According to Rolando, the entire building process took about a month to complete.
Minsan nga po, nasiraan na rin po ako ng sa paggagawa, pero sabi ko, nandiyan na yan kailangan na lang sa konting tiyaga, tutukan, at makukuha ko rin naman po.
For now, Rolando is using the drum car to sell his balut. He has already traveled to Metro Manila, Pampanga, and Bulacan using the car. And not once has he been questioned about using it. In fact, those that noticed the drum car wanted to take a picture with it instead. Along with this, Roland is also accepting orders for those who want their own drum car. The price, though, will depend on the design. Mobile journalist Yeda Pascual. We are One News.
Ano sinabi ng F1 mo dyan?
Hindi, pang Pilipinas yun.
Ang galing, ano?
Parang di lang masyadong aerodynamic, pero parang bagay sa weather natin. Sasaro ng tubig yun.
Parang ganda, parang steampunk ka, no?
Hindi, pero nakakatuwa. Yung F1, syempre galing na ako sa Singapore. I was with your kids, of course. It was, taking out all the politics of it. Nakakatuwa din talaga, really watching world-class talent and seeing all the handsome F1 cars and watching it live. Although medyo mahirap not being able to see the race from afar and you just see a stretch of the street, it feels different being able to hear the cars and to see it live.
I mean, I'm sure it was very, very exciting. Plus, as you said, all the political intrigue. In fact, you were, I think, one of the first to actually confirm it through the organizers that was, in fact, the pictures going around.
Tinanong natin kung doon yun sa F1 Paddock Club at confirmed nga. At syempre, meron din tayong nakausap na kapamilya. Kinonfirm din. Ayun nga lang. But,
well, now it's all official.
Yes.
And gaya ng conversation natin kanina kay Ed, we alluded to that as well. I mean, now it's official. I think in coming days, that conversation
I guess it's all a part of it. One thing that I learned from my trip to F1 is that more than just racing, it's the whole celebration of it. The parties, the eating, and being with different kinds of company, high profile, businessmen, politicians are all there. Plus, it's also, I found out, a family affair. I mean, there were kids, super small kids, who appreciate racing at such a young age because of their parents. Like you, with your kids, no? So, bago yun, kahit na medyo mahal yung sport, diba? Parang it's such a dream to be able to watch.
Okay, well, anyway, that's the big story tonight. For more updates, follow News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more analysis. I'm Robbie Alampay.
The big story is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. I'm Gretchen Ho. Stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.